Hello, everyone. I am Timothy Paulson, the director of the Totality Group, which is a Christian peer group for Christian business leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners. This is powered, what my group is powered by Kingdom Factor. And you see Kingdom Factor on the screen. That's the robust operating system that leads members of my group and other groups to thriving in business and in all aspects of their lives. So we do this podcast. This podcast is about merging faith and business, or faith and organizational environments. It's about merging biblical principles and business and organizational best practices. So that's what we try to tackle on these podcast episodes. And I have a really cool, moderately handsome guest today. His name is Steve Richardson. And so, Steve, thank you for joining us today. It's a delight to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
We're both in Utah. I've been here for about 22 years. You're more recent, so we'll hear more about that a little bit later. But go ahead, Steve, tell us about yourself. Tell us kind of your journey, and then we'll go from there.
So currently, I'm the executive director of the Christian Center of Park City, Utah. And I'll tell more about that, but my journey has almost nothing to do with the Christian Center of Park City. This is my first time 7 months ago moving to Utah, my first time in a nonprofit, my first time doing anything like this, because I actually started off and really started my life in the Air Force Chaplain Corps. So when I was 3 years old, my dad became a chaplain, an active duty chaplain in the Air Force. I've moved around all my life since I was 3, in fact, even before then, as he was a pastor. But as I was a kid, as I was a teenager, I fell in love with this connection between the military and faith. The idea of being a chaplain in the Air Force. I didn't want to do it for myself, but I loved that community. I loved so many airmen, these young people, 18 to 22-year-olds. I started working, volunteering for my dad, helping out in dorm ministry when I was 13 years old, probably 12 years old. Just got so excited of seeing the change in a young airman's life as they were growing through the leadership and as they were growing in faith. And so I wanted to be a part of that. In college, I felt called to be a part of that, to call the ministry first. And then I was actually, after I felt called to ministry my junior year, I fell asleep and I had a dream of preaching. And when I was preaching, I looked out at the congregation and every single person was in a military uniform. Wow. And I realized, okay, maybe I was called to be in that thing that I fell in love with. So went straight from college to seminary, finished seminary, went to pastor a church for a couple of years, told them it was only going to be a couple of years because my goal was to be an Air Force chaplain. And I became an Air Force chaplain as soon as I was qualified. I've been traveling around the last 24 years. I was a chaplain at the Air Force Academy. I was a chaplain at our schoolhouse. I've been deployed 3 or 4 different times, depending on how you count them. Did some time in Afghanistan. I have lived in 27 different locations throughout my life. So as a dependent under my dad being a chaplain, I was the first ever son to be a chaplain at the same time that their father was. Wow. So my dad and I overlapped by 12 years. Even though nobody had done it for a day, we overlapped by 12 years. Wow. So he became the chief of chaplains. I was just a chaplain, but really loving interacting with young people and just changing lives as much as I could and transforming lives. So that's been my passion for 24 years. I ended up getting sent to the Army for a little bit to get a master's in marriage and family therapy and to learn from their family life school. Just had so many experiences from so many different vantage points, but really fell in love with the caregiving and being able to lead people to God, lead people to faith, lead people to wise decisions and wise decision making. And then about a year ago, my wife says, well, about a year and a half ago, we were getting ready to stay an extra year at our base in Travis Air Force Base, California. And she looked over at me and said, all of my friends are moving this summer. We have to stay another year after that, which means I will make friends for exactly 1 year, and then we'll move, and I'll have to make friends again. And she said, I am done with that. I'd made colonel in the Air Force. I was mostly dealing with non-18 to 22-year-olds at this point. I was mostly dealing with the older people, and she said, I can tell this isn't exactly who you're passionate about. You're passionate about those who are in need, those young families, even the up to 30-year-olds I wasn't able to see as much. And she said, and I really want to stay put. And so is there any way we can care for a community like you're doing now? Yes, I was a pastor of the chapel, but it was a fairly small chapel. We had maybe 600 to 800 on a Sunday morning, which is just not a lot of people when you consider we had 27,000 people in the community that I was the senior caregiver, the senior pastor for. So she said, I want you to be the senior caregiver for a community and be able to do all the amazing things you do in the Air Force, but I'd love you to do it somewhere you could stay put. And I told her I didn't think that existed. So is there any way we could wait and not retire until we find something that doesn't exist? And then it turned out it did exist. We found the Christian Center of Park City. And so as soon as I got accepted here, I put in my paperwork. I got here in October of 2024, and it's been an amazing journey.
Well, tell us a little, I've got plenty of questions about this chaplaincy stuff.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about CCPC. See,
Yes.
I like that. I even know the acronym.
The acronym, it's great. And yet sometimes it's a great logo, but sometimes we also have to remind ourselves that we are the Christian Center of Park City.
Yes.
So CCPC, it's a multi-location organization that focuses on helping to meet people at their point of need as an expression of God's love with the purpose of transforming lives. So what that means is we have a multitude of different ways that we provide caregiving throughout our community. A lot of it is connecting people with other experts and resources that we don't have. We don't have a lawyer on staff. We don't have different people, but we have a presence within two separate counties that are right next to each other. They're called Summit County and Wasatch County. So Park City is in Summit County. Heber Valley is Wasatch County. We have 4 thrift stores that help to raise revenue, but also provide a good value. And if anybody is in need, they can walk into any one of our thrift stores and we give away the items for free. We have basic needs assistance that focuses on eviction prevention, helping the homeless, providing for, the electricity bill somebody can't make, or anything else. Even we've given away used cars or mattresses or anything else that, not used mattresses, new mattresses. We've given away things that people really need. So that's our basic needs assistance. We have 3.5 food pantries. So we have 3 static food pantries, one in Summit County, one in Wasatch County, and one in the Goshoot Indian Nation. So a Native American tribe that is about 4 hours away, but we maintain and service and provide goods for their food pantry. And then we have mobile food pantries. We know that not everybody's going to feel comfortable coming to us. So 24 times a year, we bring food to the low-income communities around Park City and around the local area. So all of the towns around will bring the mobile food pantry. We partner with other nonprofits, bring out the library, bring out the immigration project or the kennel, the dog rescue, cat rescue, whatever we can bring out to try to partner with other organizations and provide care and support, whether it be food and even counseling in these mobile food pantries. So we have those that happen. Then we have a full counseling center. So we provide a sliding scale for a Christian counseling center where we have 10 full therapists that work at our counseling center and provide amazing care within our counseling center. And then we have programs. And our programs happen generally yearly. We have things like an Operation Hope. So the normal Christmas gift giveaway, ours is a little different. Rather than having somebody fill out a little card and say the 3 items that they want and find somebody to donate to it, we reach out to the community and say, give us your best toys you can possibly do. And then we use those toys and we set up a toy store in the local outlet mall. And so within that outlet mall, we have this toy store set up. We reach out to people in need. We give them a free coat, brand new coat, or very new or close to new coat for each one of their kids. And then they can come and shop at the toy store, 3 toys for each kid, and it's all absolutely free. So our goal is not just to give away an item, but to give dignity. to give that value, to help people regain that sense of dignity and value that we often lose as we're in need. So a great example being the toy store. It looks like a toy store. They're shopping in a toy store. They have a personal shopper with them, but it's all completely free.
Wow.
So we have different programs throughout the year trying to connect, and then we have rooms that we offer seminars, and we offer classes, and we partner with other nonprofits to offer classes in our building to try to show God's love and to try to transform lives.
Fantastic. Unbelievably cool, man. That is
Yeah. We've got 80 employees. It's a crazy
wow.
thing. 80 employees and hundreds of volunteers that transform this community.
Well, that leads me to my next question, because you've got these whom you lead. You're the executive director. So as a chaplain, it's natural. It's expected, right? You're bringing faith into everything that you're doing. You're the chaplain, for
Right.
24 years in the Air Force. And so you are the spiritual leader, counselor. We expect you to be talking about the Bible and all of this, which is beautiful. Then you transition into this position, which is Christian Center Park City. So it's kind of the same thing, right? You're expected to be.
Strangely enough,
what's that?
Strangely enough, neither of them is necessarily true.
Really?
So,
Tell me
yeah,
more.
first of all, in the Air Force Chaplain Corps, the chaplain is supposed to be a spiritual leader, not a biblical leader. So I have to represent faith in general, but I also have to represent no faith at all. That a lot of what I did, especially teaching counseling, doing a lot of counseling, I would say 70% of the people that came into me for counseling were coming in to talk to me because of confidentiality or because of trust, but they had no religious faith whatsoever, and they didn't want to talk about faith. When I would do talks in front of groups, the one request is that it wouldn't be religious because it was thought to be exclusionary. So I focused on religious themes, but not talking about religious. Using verses that really connect, talking about iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another, and talking about mentoring, but never mentioning that it's a Bible verse. Quoting a really wise guy named Paul, who says, whatever is good, whatever is excellent, if anything is trustworthy, if anything is lovely or praiseworthy, think about such things. I know I messed up the quote, but I could talk about Paul, and that was okay if I said it was the Apostle Paul in the Bible. Then it was a problem. And because we really didn't want to have people feel excluded. And so that became a theme over my 24 years. It became more and more important. And really, it works really well if you think about it. If I went in there, let's say I did a talk for a bunch of airmen and the commander, the colonel, the 05, the lieutenant colonel, the major, a bunch of young airmen, and I get in there and I speak about the Bible. Well, we can't force religion on anybody, especially in the business setting. To make somebody sit in a Bible study, to make somebody sit in a devotional, to say, hey, you're going to listen about this. In the military, the real problem was we have the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States that says the government can make no establishment of religion. Outside of the military, there's also that whole, you're forcing your beliefs upon me, and to feel very threatened by those beliefs, and to feel exclusionary. But the challenge in the military, since I couldn't force faith on people, was to still be able to focus on themes that I found very powerful, and to be able to come back. I could do it in the military. I could get up there and preach the Bible in a mandatory setting. I have freedom of religion, and they have freedom to never invite me back. I'd much rather be invited back.
Yes.
So if I could talk about the idea of focusing on whatever is true, whatever is lovely, whatever is pure, whatever is excellent. If I could focus on the idea of what grace really means, if I could focus on the idea of what forgiveness really means, if I could focus on the idea of what hope really means, and then I can encourage them to come talk to me afterwards. The number of people that would come talk to me and I could share my faith directly because I was invited to a mandatory meeting was amazing. And I have found that my dad used to tell me early on in the military, a quote from Jesus, be as wise as a serpent and as gentle as a dove. That I want to be able to speak that gentleness, to speak that truth, but do it in a wise way that will allow people to come back. we can always answer the question. The Bible says, be ready to answer why the faith, give the reason for the faith that you have. I can always give that reason of faith that I have. And I've found that once somebody asks the question, it's fair game. Mm-hmm. But there's a beauty, especially in the military, and I found it as well in Christian Center of Park City, because we have no faith expectation. We have no church, we have no denomination, we have no statement of faith. Anybody can be a part of one of our employees. A lot of our employees have other faiths. We have people with no faith at all, and yet they want to be a part of something amazing. And so if I'm able to focus on those truths of the Bible without saying where it's from, it's inviting so much more truth to come out, and it's so much more conversations afterwards.
Well, I love that, because really, again, what we're talking about, you brought it really together nicely for us in Totality Group and Kingdom Factor, because we're dealing mostly with Christian business leaders. So they're in the business world. Yeah. So they've got to navigate this, as you have as well. Yeah. So bringing up the biblical principles without specifically quoting scripture, that's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the principles of grace and trust and forgiveness and love and peace and joy and the things I can talk about are so crucial for business. They're so crucial for me in business, and they were crucial for me in the military. And amazingly, it felt so well with people. They would hear it and say, oh, I totally relate to that idea of humility. And yet a lot of our young people have completely biblically illiterate. They had no idea it was from the Bible.
Right.
But then they'd ask me about it afterwards. Tell me more about that.
Wow, Steve, you are so wise.
Right.
Well, see where I got those from. Yeah. I think that's really interesting, and again applies to the environment that we're in here. So that leads me to a question, Steve. It's like, what biblical principles or scriptures serve as foundational guideposts for how you lead at Christian Center Park City?
So you've
already alluded to them, probably everything that you've said already, but what would you add?
I'm going to add in all the verses I've already quoted poorly.
Yes.
And then one of the ones that I haven't really quoted is to speak truth in love. Okay. And I have found that there is a transparency that needs to happen in business, and especially as I'm dealing with multiple locations, 4 different locations, and a lot of different personalities and a lot of different value sets and value ideas. For me to kind of think through, what does it mean, first of all, not to do verbal vomit, but to speak truth. Mm-hmm. Truth will always have facts and emotions. Truth will always have the idea of love. If I'm really speaking truth and I'm a person of love, then everything I'm saying should be out of love, even if it's discipline, even if it's correction, even if it's sharing that this wasn't a great thing that you did right now. It should all be routed in love. So I don't hide it. If all I'm speaking is love and I'm not speaking truth, if I'm just giving praise, but I'm not speaking truth, then I'm lying. And if I'm just sharing the facts and I'm not sharing the love, then I'm lying, because I'm not speaking truth. Mm-hmm. And so for me, the grace, the sense of praise, the sense of hope that we can have in the Bible are so important as I run this organization. But the idea of what it really means to speak truth in every situation, for people to know who I really am, for donors, for customers, for employees, for volunteers, for other nonprofits to know that I am not hiding things. I am speaking truth with that emotion of love and care that I really want the best for somebody else. The action of love, not just the feeling of love.
How does that manifest in your organization, that love, the manifestation of love? I think what comes to mind, Steve, is people may know that you were a chaplain. They may know you're a man of faith. How do they know it without your saying it, without those words?
Yeah, I wish it was just telling them to do some push-ups. Tell them I'm a chaplain.
Yes.
In reality, it's going out there and asking questions and then asking follow-ups. Mm-hmm. In other words, one of my favorite questions is, hey, how's it going? They always give me the same 10 responses, 5 responses, maybe 2 responses. Good, fine, excellent, wonderful, all great. In the military, it was living the dream, which was hilarious because nobody dreams of the military.
Yes.
We dream of retirement, but not standing in the guard shack or something. But I always got the same kind of responses. And then my favorite question afterwards was, why? Whatever they answered, why? And they'd say, huh? And I'd say, well, you just said you're excellent, or you just said you're good, or you just said you're fine. Why? Tell me about it. What's excellent in your life right now? What's good in your life right now? What could be better in your life right now? And I have found it gets 30 seconds to the heart of who someone is, and I'm able to show them the love of actually listening to them and caring about what's going on in their life without having to spend an hour doing it. That in a total of 3-4 minutes, I've communicated love, I've listened to them, I've cared for them. Sometimes I've even prayed for them right there. But to show them that love as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. It reminds me of something. I was at some sort of an open house, right? There were some dignitaries there. There was some senators, U.S. senators, and governor and individuals like that. And I went up to a senator, and I really liked this senator. I voted for him multiple times. And so I go up to him and I introduced myself, and I said, I vote for you every time. And I think you're doing just a tremendous job. I just want to thank you. And as I'm saying that, he's looking past me like, wait, who else should I be speaking to? It's like, yeah, thank you. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
But who am I missing here? Or maybe there's somebody else more important behind me, And I think that what you're talking about is, hey, how are you doing? How are things going? How are you? They give a response, oh, that's fine, thank you, and then you move on. Or, tell me why. And that you're connecting with the person too, aren't you? You're showing that you care. You're showing that I'm not too busy and this isn't just an automatic greeting. I'm actually kind of interested in you.
Yeah.
So the question I have now is, because all of this, we're talking about your organization, but you're very educated. As a matter of fact, you and I both have a Master of Divinity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I both have a Doctor of Ministry.
That's correct.
You're just so much smarter than me. I don't know where I went wrong, but anyway.
I'm glad I'm pretending well.
But you're astute. You've been around for a long time. So I'm asking you to kind of think about those in the business environment, perhaps, what practical advice you could offer for them to integrate their faith into their professional lives and their business practices. You're doing it, but there's some practical advice that might be helpful.
Well, I do love that old, the 3rd century quote, to preach the gospel at all times and when necessary, use words.
Yes.
We often forget that we're showing love at every moment. We're showing who we are. We're demonstrating who we are and who we stand for at every moment. And I've talked to so many people of faith, so many Christians over the years, especially leaders, that just felt like as soon as they walked through their building, they had to leave their faith at the door. Or they had to go the opposite way, and they had to make sure there was a Bible on their desk that was open to the verse that they wanted to teach, and they had to try to get somebody to ask them the question. And it was one extreme to the other. And there's as wise as a serpent and gentle as a dove.
Yeah.
There's a beauty in living your faith without having to preach it at every moment, so that you're not ostracized, so you're not, so that the defenses don't come up.
Yes.
If you're able to live those values that people actually do want to hear about, the love, the grace, the hope, the joy, the peace, the forgiveness, the truth, that we can set up such beautiful opportunities to prepare the soil in business. And then so often we can still have those invitations. Hey, there's something meaningful happening at my church. Would you just want to let you know in case you're interested? Or there's something amazing happening. If anybody's interested, I'd love to have you come. And they actually might come because of the way they've seen you live.
Yeah.
Not because of what you said.
Yeah. Very, very well said. We talk a lot about love. And my first book I wrote, Love and Grow Rich. It's after Think and Grow Rich, but Love and Grow Rich, how to love your way to life's riches. And so rich doesn't mean, just financial, right? It means growing in your relationships and
being rich toward God.
What's that?
Being rich toward God.
Well, I like that. Yeah. And so when you are what you describe as a leader, as you're suggesting for business leaders, people want to work for you. They want to work with you. They feel different. This is a different position. And a lot of times it's not about how much money they're making. It's about how you make them feel. But in that book that I wrote, Love and Grow Rich, few quotes. So I'd love to get your comments about just a couple of quotes I'll share. One is Emmett Fox. He was a theologian of yesteryear. He said, if we could only love enough, we could be the most powerful person in the world. And it's just, and I've got all sorts of stories to go with that, but gosh, we're loving people, and oh my gosh, how that can influence people in a very positive way. Teilhard de Chardin, a theologian of yesteryear, and I don't say his name right, by the way, Teilhard de Chardin, but he said, and let me see if I can get this quote about right. So this is about right, paraphrasing a little bit. In a coming day, after harnessing the tides, gravitation, space, mankind will harness for God the energies of love. And that on that day, for the second time in the history of the world, man will have discovered fire. So we're going to harness the space, and this was that quote is from centuries ago. We're gonna harness space and the tides and gravitation, but man, the day we can harness the energies of love, everything changes. And so I can just say period, and people can understand that. But what would you say about that, Steve?
So I would say, first of all, that love is not what you say, it's what you do. And I've seen way too many people that are convinced that they're leading in love because they said this praise, because they keep on telling people how awesome they are. You're so great. You're so awesome. You're so wonderful. And so they tell me, oh, I'm leading in love. And I'd say, really, how do your people know? And say, well, I keep on telling them. Well, that's not love. It's praise.
Yeah.
I want to see how you're actually serving them.
Yes.
What are you doing for your people? What are you doing to demonstrate God's love and your love for your people every single day? If they can't see it in your actions, they shouldn't just hear it in your words.
Very good. And I'm going to talk about the power of the words for a minute. What you just said, 100%. Love that. Because the words without any action, it's empty. But let me just, a real quick story, and then I'm going to ask you another question, and then we'll conclude. We could go on for a long time because you're a fascinating person with all sorts of wisdom, which I appreciate, and the listeners and the viewers will appreciate too. When I was a little boy, I grew up in Santa Barbara, California. When I was a little boy, my dad, full-time artist. He was a painter, still is. He's 90 years old, but a full-time artist. And he had just become a full-time artist. So that's, you've heard the term starving artist before. We weren't starving, but we didn't have a lot of extra. And in Santa Barbara, a house, 3-bedroom, 1 bath. There's 7 of us in the house. A lot of people can relate to that. You grow up in homes with small homes, in a home that's kind of small. But three boys in 1 bedroom, me and my 2 brothers. But anyway, one day my parents got a phone call from a friend of ours, Jerry Morgan. And Jerry said, and I'm about 12 years old at this time. And Jerry says to my parents, there's a family in crisis. And we didn't know the family, but they have 2 young boys, age 8 and 10. And they need to be taken out of that home in a safe environment. Would you be willing to take these boys for a couple of weeks? And my parents said immediately, yes, of course, we'd be happy to. We didn't have the room in the house. We didn't have the room in the budget for 2 more mouths.
Yeah.
But they said, yes, absolutely. So they have hearts like you, Steve, and those who serve with you. They want to help. They want to serve. And then Jerry kind of added a caveat. She said, well, the younger one, his name is Ethan. He's really ill-behaved. My parents said, no problem. We'd be happy to welcome them. So they arrived shortly after, and Ethan was worse than she said. He was rude, he was crude, he was abrasive, he was just a naughty little boy. And one thing my dad would never allow his 5 kids to get away with, he allowed us to get away with some things, but we could never show any disrespect to my mom. Yeah. Any disrespect. My dad, if we did, my dad wasn't physical, but he would raise his voice and he had that look. And we knew we were in trouble if we ever showed disrespect to my mom. So with that background, Ethan, the second day he was with us, he swore at my mom. He yelled at my mom. And my mom's a saint. She's an angel, right? It's like, so my dad didn't take kindly to that. And I remember hearing this. I was in the living room. We wanted to get as far away from Ethan as we could. So we're in the other end of the house. But I hear this, and my dad, I hear him, he said, Ethan. My dad picked him up, carried him down the hallway rapidly into a private room. Now I'm watching this, and I saw them go by into this private room, and I'm thinking, all right, Dad, it's about time you take care of that little twerp. You know, give him the look, give him the look, give him that tone of voice, give him a piece of your mind, Dad. But 2 minutes later, they came out of that room, and my dad was carrying Ethan, and Ethan was hugging my dad. My dad was hugging Ethan, slowly walking back into the room where my mom was. Ethan apologized. They were with us not a couple of weeks, Steve. They were with us probably 2.5 months. Ethan was almost angelic during that time. He totally changed. And it was like, wow, what happened? And people would say, well, it's a firm hand of discipline, or you just had to chew him out. You had to tell him who was in charge. I don't think so. Anyway, my dad told me and my siblings sometime later, he said, I took Ethan into that room and I shut the door. And he says, I was really mad. He showed disrespect to my girlfriend, my eternal companion, my wife. And he said, Ethan was shaking like a leaf. He's missing his front teeth. He's shaking like a leaf because he was used to some sort of physical punishment. But my dad, he said, I looked at him and he said, Ethan, I love you. And Ethan looked up at him and said, you love me? And my dad said, yes. And I want you to be good. And I want you to tell my wife you're sorry for the disrespect. That's when Ethan jumped up and hugged him. And that's the image that we saw coming out of that room. And again, that totally changed Ethan. Now, to your point, Steve, it wasn't empty words. My dad was and still is one of the most loving people I've ever seen. But my dad is so good at expressing it. My dad was raised on a farm in Minnesota. His dad never once told him, I love you, son. But my dad knew that he loved him. He was harsh. He was a strong leader, my grandpa. But my dad, somewhere along the line, discovered the being demonstrative with love, being hugging and expressing it. And so I just learned from that, the power of that, followed by the actions as well. What would you add to that, Steve?
I would say that the other key to what your dad did was he broke a pattern and showed forgiveness.
I love that.
Right? There was a pattern that the young boy was expecting.
Yeah.
And so often people are expecting a pattern. If you can break a pattern, you get attention. But the real thing that demonstrated love was not the words, I love you. It was the reaction your dad gave when he was expecting punishment and got forgiveness.
Yeah, that's beautiful. What a great addition to the story you just made. Forgiveness, what a beautiful thing. All right, Steve, we're going to bring this to a close. Two things. One, first of all, if you could mentor the 21-year-old Steve, going back at least 8-9 years,
Yes.
What wisdom would you give your 21-year-old self?
Never react. I would tell myself to never react. I've gotten in so much trouble by reacting, having my emotions, and just doing something as a reaction rather than choosing an action in response. I have reacted too many times in my life, and I wish I could take back every single reaction and choose an action, not based on what somebody else did to me, but based on who I am and how much God loves them and me.
Can you give us one example of that?
Oh man. So one example is I was forced to move furniture for a person that I greatly outranked. And I had a ton of things to do, and I was told, nope, you're going to move furniture in, put them in the office that you want to go. You're going to go work in a conference room. It wasn't a punishment in their mind. I don't necessarily agree with the decision, but it's what the leadership decided. But what I chose to do was drag the furniture as loud as possible in front of the leadership to let them know how upset I was. And I was counseled by somebody who's now the deputy chief of chaplains that was the wrong choice to make, and he was absolutely right. And I look back at that and said, wow, I had a chance just to show love, just to go ahead and lift that furniture and carry something for somebody that took the office that I really wanted when I didn't get an office at all. And instead, I had to show my displeasure. And that reaction was absolutely messed up.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that. It's nice to know that others are a little bit imperfect too. Even Steve.
Yeah.
But that's
plenty of imperfects. We don't have enough time for enough.
We don't have enough time for that. Two things, real briefly. One is there anything you'd like the viewers to do? Is there any way we can help you at CCPC or something?
If you ever stop by Park City, check out one of our stores. The donation, there's lots of ways to support and lots of ways to help, and we'd love to hear from you.
Great. And then lastly, what are your final words in this? What would you like to say as a final send-off here?
Thanks, God. It's been good. This journey, being able to do this kind of caregiving in this community, being able to work with all these churches, being able to work with all these people who really love others and love you. Thanks.
Well said. Thanks, everyone. It's been wonderful to have Steve Richardson with us. And until next time, I'm Timothy Paulson. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you.